While we continue to meditate, let me read this week's reading, an affirmation, and we'll do our affirmation together. This week, the topic is self-control. Let's take these words into our meditation. If a lake is made to feed into too many streams, it will soon become drained. Similarly, if a person's heart's energy are fed into countless streamlets of desires, he becomes drained eventually of even the power to feel. Sated with pleasure, he grows dry, blasé, and indifferent even to the greatest wonders. The sensualist imagines that by giving up his pleasures he would renounce happiness, but in fact, the more one restrains his senses and learns to live in the peace of the inner self, the more he finds himself glowing with happiness, good health, and a radiant sense of freedom and well-being. Let us affirm together, first loudly, then a little bit more softly, then inwardly and silently, whispering and then silently. Repeat after me. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. Again, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. Now, very quietly, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. And now whispering, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my being. And now let's take this affirmation, focusing your attention at the point between the eyebrows, looking up into the spiritual eye, the third eye. I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. And the prayer for this week, I crave nothing that the world can give me, Lord. O infinite perfection, make me one with Thee. Om Shanti. Let us now have our reading for this week.
Okay, good evening everyone and good morning Jayaji. The reading for today is on the topic We Are Children of the Light from the Rays of the One Light by Swami Kriyananda. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. It is common for people to perceive themselves according to their present realities. A person in ill health says, I am ill. Few say, I am well. It is my body that is suffering. People in a low income bracket say, I am poor. Only the unusual person will say, though outwardly I live in poverty, inwardly I am wealthy. Thus, when it comes to moral and spiritual development, people commonly identify themselves with their weaknesses and their mistakes. They consider it almost a sign of humility to say, I am a sinner. Though, in effect, what this means is that they identify themselves with their sinfulness, not with the soul's power to transcend all limitations in God. The great masters, including Jesus Christ, have always emphasized the divine potential of mankind. To encourage us, they address us as children of light, not of darkness. The Bible, in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 3, makes the point that our true home is not the mud of this earth, but the light of heaven. No man has ascended up to heaven, it tells us, but him that came down from heaven. This passage continues, even so, the Son of Man who is in heaven, emphasizing that Jesus, though he lived on earth, he is perceived by the eye of wisdom as conscious, even in human form, of his true reality in heavenly spheres. The way to know God is to live in godly consciousness and not to bewail our imperfection and our distance from God. Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." And Bhagavad Gita states, "Seekers of union with the Lord find him dwelling in their own hearts. But those who, lacking in wisdom, seek him with impure motives, cannot perceive him, however much they struggle to do so." If you want to know God, Paramahansa Yogananda said, live in the thought that you have him already. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om.
Thank you very much. And welcome everybody once again to the Sunday Satsang this evening. And as previously said, my name is Nayaswami Jaya. And I would like to share with you today, I'm a little bit different, something different. Actually, I'm broadcasting this from my office here at Ananda Village, and normally, and then so which means that I can't do the arti, play the arti. I don't have my harmonium. My guest room, where I have my altar at home, is occupied. I have a guest right now. My daughter is visiting me, and our recording studio here at the Sangha office is being renovated, and so here we are today. And so I hope one of you, and as I mentioned, will do the arti for me this after the conclusion. What I want to do today is I want to ask a question, and it's something that has come as an observation that I've had over the many years on the spiritual path. And I've often thought in my mind this question and speculated about it. And I want to share not only the observation, but my speculation of what the answer might be, or perhaps a clue as to what the answer could be, and we could follow that a little bit. And what I'm also doing is I'm asking you to think about it also, and to go within, and maybe you have an answer as well. And we could then, in sharing what I think might be one of the answer, it leads us to certain understanding what I think Master's mission is all about and what he is doing, and the specialness, you might say, of a great soul such as Master, why he has come, and perhaps why, as an avatar, why he is incarnated. And it begins with my observation that if you look at the great texts, spiritual literature, there are references in ancient texts, and you see our topic is children of the light. There are references in most ancient texts, sacred texts, the tradition of the spiritual mystical eye was what we call it. And we know this is something very common. We as I was meditating today, leading that meditation, I asked us to look up into the spiritual eye, look into the light there, and there are references throughout spiritual literature of this third eye, the mystical eye, that point between the eyebrows, but nowhere, to my understanding. Now, if you can answer this and provide me with some data or something you have found, please do so. I'd like to know that. But nowhere in this is this inner experience of the third eye described or explained in such detail as it has been by our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, how he describes this ring of golden light surrounding a blue field within it, and in the center of that field, a five-pointed star. Now we've made reference. And the Bible makes reference of the Star of the East, and there's these vague references like that, but nowhere has it been explained so explicitly as this golden ring, blue field, and a star in the middle. And of course, Yogananda goes on to explain it even further as to what those colors actually represent, what those rings actually represent, representing the inner world of the Shushumna, through which the soul must pass in the process of enlightenment as we go into deep meditation. I think many of you or most of you know these teachings. Now, this is a very significant statement, and it has been stated many times by Master, and certainly Swami Kriyananda would state that this vision of the third eye, this passing of the third through the consciousness through the Shushumna through this third eye, which is referenced in the ancient scriptures of the East, in Indian tradition, of course, but it's not the colors and what that third eye looks like and the detail to which Master gave it. I have not found any reference that I know of other saints and mystics describing this experience. It's somewhat unique to Master. Now, I don't know if any of you have noticed that and thought about that. And it raises certain questions. Or you could say, as far as I know, there's no corroboration of what Master said. Now, that's interesting, because if this is a universal experience, and we know that through time there's been saints and sages and people that have been very advanced. We know this from historical record, and the Masters have always said, why? Why has this not been described? And I think one answer might be, well, if Master's the only one that has said this, was he wrong? Is this not so? He was making this up? Well, of course, I'm not going to say that. I mean, the Master said that, and he doesn't need to, there's, I don't think, no corroboration or statement that, no, he was wrong is the proper one. He was making a statement actually for eternity, for generations to come, that people, and he would say, you yourself can experience this. And actually, I was blessed with an experience many years ago, 1986, at a Christmas meditation. Swami Kriyananda was leading it, and it was in the temple at Ananda Village. And he went into a deep state at that meditation, and he wanted to share some inspiration that came to him at that time for all of us. Perhaps we too would be inspired. And he felt as if Divine Mother was speaking to him, and that Divine Mother wanted to share that inspiration. And so he did, and it was inspiring. And as I meditated, I had this experience of seeing the spiritual eye, just as Master described it. That ring of gold, field of blue, white star in the center. And it was vivid. It was no doubt. It was absorbing. And that experience it pulled me into that light, of seeing that light. Now, in retrospect, I could say, well, I wish it would have pulled me into the light of that inner star, is what we're is our spiritual goal is. But it didn't do that. But it did appear to me very, very vividly. And it stayed with me for about 15 minutes. which is it's quite a long time in meditation. And so this had a tremendous effect upon me. One is, you can imagine, I was deeply inspired, and over the days that followed, I kept referencing back to that. But in the long term, it had a deep impact upon me. Because if you remember back to that story that Dr. Lewis speaks about, his first meeting with Paramahansa Yogananda when Master revealed to him the light of the cosmic consciousness. I think he saw more than just the spiritual light. He saw this great light and went into that light because it was a somewhat of a samadhi experience for him. But he became his lifelong disciple after that experience. And so it was with me. Now Master I felt was my guru before that time, but it convinced me because I was at the beginning of when I was being asked to become a public speaker and to share these teachings out with other people. And being a shy person is my nature, somewhat, or introspective or introverted type of person, not one to be outwardly expressive. I was a bit reticent, and that experience convinced me of Master's teachings. I knew Master's teachings. I was following Master's teachings. I believed in Master's teachings. I was devoted. But until you have an experience directly, you can't speak from what you know to be true. And so that had a deep experience in me, but it raised the thought in me, why is this not explained? If this has been seen by millions over historical time, why is it not explained? Why is Master now the one who is explaining this at this time? And I began to think about that, and over the years, I've come up with, and nobody seems to have been able to answer me that question. But I began speculating myself, and I have a thought, this is a thought I want to share with you, why that might be. Now, bear with me. There is a phenomena in society. I knew of this phenomena in other contexts, scientifically or in the field of psychology, in the field of sociology. This phenomena in society where that society moves from unawareness of phenomena in this world to awareness of something. This movement from unawareness to awareness of having when a concept is explained and is to them in language, it's often described. Let me see. Now, let me start over here. There is a phenomena in society that moves from unawareness to awareness of a concept once it is explained and described. And until that time, until it is actually explained and described, many people are totally unaware of it. It's a shift from, you could say, the unseen patterns of conscious recognition. And this in other words, something is there, but people do not see it. People do not recognize it. Even though it happens right before their eyes, they won't see it until it is explained. And once it is explained, then it's recognized. And people say, oh, it was there all the time. I knew this phenomena exists. And in thinking about this discussion of this we're having today, I Googled it and tried to find it. What is this called? And it turns out this phenomenon is known as the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. And I have a definition here. And I'll read the definition. This phenomena has been explained as a phenomena as a function of language. Once someone explains a new idea, society suddenly sees that phenomenon everywhere because they now have a linguistic tool to identify it. For example, if a language has no word for a specific color or for a specific emotion, its speakers may be slower to distinguish it or to categorize it as a distinct experience. Now, this is an interesting phenomenon. It's been observed in many different situations in testing, and one of them it has to do with color. And this is an interesting observation. Also, in the ancient texts, East and West, except for in one culture that's known, there is no word for blue. The color, you look at the sky, what color is the sky? Well, we would say, on a clear day, we would say the sky is blue. And that seems like it's very obvious. But if you go back in history and look at ancient texts, there is no word for blue. And the classic example of this is in the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey. Homer describes the wine, the sea is not blue, it's the wine-colored ocean. There's no word for blue. Only in Egypt was there a word for blue. And this is not just in Western culture, this is Eastern culture too. You go into the ancient texts, the Vedas, anywhere, there's no word for blue. And it's as if they didn't recognize blue. Now, does that mean they didn't physically see something as blue? Yes, they probably did see it, but they didn't categorize it for blue. So the question comes up, did the color blue exist if there was no language for it? Now, technically, yes, the body was probably able to see blue, but the mind could not recognize it as a distinct color. Now, I'll give you an example if this seems a bit strange. There's a tribe in Africa, Namibia. Yeah, it's a Namibian tribe. And it has no color. It doesn't recognize the color blue still. And so consequently, what they've done, and there's lots of documentation about that, they would show a ring of boxes colored blue, or no, colored green. They could see green, and they could see actually many shades of green that we cannot see. They could see green, and they would color one of these green boxes, they would color it blue. And they would ask the tribesmen, which one of the boxes is blue? Which one of the boxes is different than the other ones? And they couldn't see it. They just could not see it. It was obvious. You look at it, you see it, well, it's that one right there. They could not. All of the boxes to them look green. Now that's kind of interesting. Why? Well, now if you put all of them green, and from the Namibian perspective, if one of them was one of the shades of green that the Namibian could see, that was Gemini AI that just jumped into my audio here, but if the Namibians could see one of the boxes as a different color of green, whereas I couldn't see it. It was perfectly looked like all the other ones. But this is an interesting phenomena that has happened. And so it raises the question, think of our ancestors. Could they see the world in the same way that we see it? Or were they seeing the world in a limited way? Now, physiology or physically, they probably did have that capability, but if there was no concept of it, language had not explained that color, perhaps they didn't see that color. They couldn't see the color. Now, I find that very fascinating. And of course, you could see that where I'm going with this scientific observation. Now think about this. What are we not seeing right now? That perhaps is right there, but we have no concept for it. We have no language for it. We have, as a society, we don't have any explanation for it. And until somebody comes and explains it, and there's some experience of it, then we begin to see it. And it's often this effect is that when something is explained linguistically and somebody observes something, then all of a sudden other people begin to see it too. Oh, I've seen that. That's what that is. And in the recognition of it and in the identification of it, then people begin to quote unquote see it. And the question comes up, it's not that these things don't exist, but we don't see them or recognize them. But once somebody explains them, you more easily begin to notice them. And this is a phenomenon in society that's been recognized in many different things. And as a society, what we're finding ourselves in right now is, my thinking is, as our society progresses into a higher age, our awareness as a species, we're moving into from Kali Yuga into Dwapara Yuga, our awareness as a species begins to increase as a species, societally, our ability to actually perceive something. Now, that may be a very far-fetched explanation, but maybe you could also say that maybe these things exist in the superconscious realm as potentials until somebody with intuitive insight accesses them and describes them. Now think of Einstein, his theory of relativity. Relativity always existed. It was a way of looking, it was Einstein's ability to intuitively look at the world in a new way and be able to bring that intuitive vision of how we could also look at this physical world in a new way, that people began to accept it. So people just would not, took quite a while for even great scientists to be able to accept what Einstein was saying. But then once they perceived it from his perspective, then, oh, of course, that makes a lot of sense. Now, it took Einstein many years. I think the standard explanation is that it took him 8 years, at least that long, maybe a little longer, to mathematically describe what his intuition was able to directly perceive, and he had the help of other mathematicians to be able to explain it mathematically. But this is also one of the functions, I think, of art. Artists often speak in terms of their creations being given to them. In other words, an artist or a musician perhaps perceives something, and then he receives it and is able to translate it into his music. And he would often, great artists often say, oh, I didn't create it, it was just given to me. Might not this be something very similar as what's happening here? And there are geniuses that are able to do that. The great artists are geniuses in their realm, but there are also geniuses of the spiritual realm. And this is what the masters are, the great ones, the avatars. They come to introduce into the world new realities, new concepts. They don't create them. They were there all the time. These perceptions were there and accessible to all already. But they come to bring those down from the superconsciousness and to help make those perceptions available to everybody in this age, or as Jesus Christ would say, to those who have ears, let them hear. But only those with the inner ears, or those who are with a willing spirit, were truly able to grasp that spiritual message which he was bringing. And so these hidden realities are always there, but the consciousness of society is not always ready to be able to perceive them. And Master, of course, Master came, as Swami Kriyananda would say. He came as an avatar of this age. And we, of course, he's given us perhaps the grace to be able to perceive these things through our practice of his techniques. And with his blessings, God's grace, we're given sometimes these opportunities, as I mentioned at the beginning. These opportunities comes to us to bring forth and testify to the truths that the great avatars brought. And this is what Christ asked of his disciples. This is what all of the great masters, East and West, their disciples then testify, given the ability to perceive the truths that the Master brings and to testify them to them. And as we testify to the truths of the Masters, they become accessible, more accessible, you might say, to society at large. And people say, oh, yes, I saw that, yes. And then we have language for it. It's a reality. And you could say, did those who have gone before us see the spiritual eye as Master perceived it and said, the great saints that have, lived throughout the ages? Yes, they did. But no, in the sense that they didn't have the language, perhaps. Now, you have to say there's probably to deep disciples and amongst themselves they did, but society at large didn't recognize it. But did they see it? Yes and no. So we have entered, all of us, we've entered a new age. Gradually, those souls that are being born now, this what seems to be in previous ages very rare and uncommon, as language perceives these things and language is shared, the great masters come, like masters' teachings begin to be disseminated and be accepted. Oh, yes, of course, there's these inner realities. There's these currents that are moving in the spine. There's these lights of the chakras. As these become inner realities that are common and accepted, we actually begin to see it. Just like those tribesmen in India, if they finally they're exposed, young new ones are being born, they're exposed to the language that the sky is blue. It's not green, it's blue. This becomes common. And so I think you'll see this. And it's in a sense, when we read the Holy Science of Swami Sri Yukteswar, he said that mankind, in this age that we have entered, will become aware of inner energies as we progress through our practice of the techniques that are given for this age. These will become common realities, but it's not that they don't exist already. They do exist. And for those who practice, those become a reality. And you could say the grace of our teachings allows us to be able to perceive those realities. And I think it's our job as disciples to experience these, to try to experience these, and to share this vision, to share these experiences or the teachings of these experiences, at least that, until ultimately they too, a language is developed. And this, of course, there's movements of current in the spine. Of course, there's going to be, as Yukteswar said, in this age, we'll begin to associate. Yes, when we're happy, life forces rising in the spine, and this is what we need to do: rise that energy up in the spine. And this is the normal. This is normal, and you'll come to experience that. And we begin to associate these with movements of our states of being, with these energies moving in the spine. And so we need not wait. Yes, Sri Yukteswar said this is the future for mankind generally in this age to come, but we need not wait. I think this gives us an instruction, or points us toward attuning to the Guru's consciousness now, opens us to that ability to actually being able to receive the teachings. The masters come with the teachings. How do we experience those teachings? They are just intellectually, we come to understand them, but it's through attunement to the Guru's vibration that ultimately allows us to actually understand and experience and to actually see blue instead of green. We attune to the Guru sees blue, and maybe we don't. But when we attune to the Guru, we're given that ability to see through the eyes of the Guru that which is already before us, but we just can't see it. You know those optical puzzles where if you look at it one way, you can see a face, and if you look at it another way, you see a different face. But when you fixate on the first face, it's very hard to have your mind change and be able to see the other face. Sometimes you just have to wipe your mind clean, and then you come back and you can see the other. Well, and the same thing. These realities of the spiritual life, the realities of the inner world, they're right before us if we could only see it. And I can imagine the masters saying to us, can't you see it? It's right there. And our ability to see that is to, you could say, wash ourselves clean and to attune ourselves to the masters to be able to see that which is right there before us already. And so this is what you could say our journey as disciples is, to wash yourselves in the clean stream of inner consciousness, in our meditation, in our practice of Kriya, and then the newer inner world that's right there already before us begins to reveal itself to us. Now, as I say, when I began, I'm speculating. Don't take this. This is not necessarily, I haven't seen the masters say this in his writings. I'm just speculating. But I think about it. And I do know that if we do attune ourselves, we are able to see clear, you might say, through the master's eyes, we begin to see our life. And we see that, yes, it's always been there. Happiness is there. Light is there. These things are there. But until we actually experience them, we don't seem to realize that. And so this is, you could say, the blessing of the masters gives us the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And so the deeper we go into the teachings, this ability will then come to us, and then we can begin to share this with others. So each of us needs to take these for ourselves and see if it's not true. And I do say, if you can find in the ancient teachings, when I started, I could not find it, deep description to this level. Perhaps you know differently. And if you do, please do write to me and tell me the source of your material, because I'd like to know. Joy to you.